Okay, so welcome to another edition of these masterclasses. My name is Dayo Samuel, and what I am trying to do with each of these life classes is to bring you solutions, strategies, tips, and what can actually help you become more so that you can overcome fear and go after the things that matter to you in personally and professionally. The idea here is that by the time I'm done with any session here, I don't guess it's paparazzi. So by the time I'm done, you should be able to use whatever it is I share with you here and be able to work with it immediately. So let's talk about today overcoming fear induced by low self-esteem. Now, what I want to do here is to first off share something that will actually help you, and more importantly, to bring clarity, solutions, and action steps that you can work with. Now, I'm talking about overcoming fear induced by low self-esteem. I want to read something to you by Nathaniel Branden. It says, of all the judgments we pass in life, none is as important as the one we pass on ourselves. For that judgment touches the very center of our existence. Let me repeat that again. Of all the judgments we pass in life, none is as important as the one we pass on ourselves. For that touches the very center of our existence. What that means in essence is every now and then we seem to pass judgment, whether we are judging others or we are judging ourselves. But of all these judgments, whether unto others or to ourselves, the one that seems to have the most power is the judgment we pass on ourselves. So this kind of formed the foundation for my discussion today. So let's, first of all, I want to read something to you from someone who has actually experienced some of the things I've been sharing with you here. And his name is Alfred A. Ido. He says, the consequence of not getting what I want or need can be very painful sometimes. I have got plans, desires, and expectations. Sometimes I try so hard to make things happen and ensure my expectations are met, but my expectations are truncated by fear. I have been a prisoner of my fear. I have fear for many things, including things that naturally shouldn't be scary. I had a very rough background. I was psychologically abused while growing up, and that was beginning of everything. And then I enrolled for the Fear Resolve program, which put an end to every form of fear. Before the program, I had a lot of issues with myself, and I so much enjoyed loneliness. I find it very hard to let things go, among many other things. All of these have been a thing of the past because I have learnt and grown past my fear. I have stopped living a life of tension, torment, and anxiety. The most challenging part of the program was when we were asked to appreciate ourselves. Really, it was so challenging for me because I really couldn't think of me praising myself. And now it has become a part of me, and now I feel like a newborn baby. I would like to say a very big thank you to Dayo Samuel and his beautiful wife Isaiah Dayo Samuel for a job well done. And now I can confront my fear because it poses no threat. Now, the reason why I read this testimonial, this feedback to you, is because this was someone who had fear issues. And more importantly, his fear was actually induced by him not believing in himself because he had been psychologically abused. As you can see here, he was psychologically abused while growing up, and that actually affected his self-esteem. So when he was asked to actually appreciate himself, he couldn't do it because, man, how can you expect me to appreciate myself when the major problem I'm experiencing is actually with myself? So the reason why I'm bringing this to you today is to help you see what you can do, and I'm going to share with you what you can do to actually resolve that fear caused and induced by low self-esteem. So if you're here and you can still hear me, please let me get your yes in the comments below. Please say yes in the comments below. Can you say a yes in the comments below? Let me get your yes in the comments below. Okay, amazing, amazing, amazing. So there is a tool that I developed called Life Movement. And what I do with this tool is to help people, is to kind of give a panorama of what people's lives are. Majority of the time, what I use this tool for is to actually give a kind of timeline of the things that have happened in your life up until now, and even what you are moving into. So this kind of serves as a timeline, right? And I call it the life movement, your movement of life, how you were, how you are, and how you will be. Now, there's a lot more detail with this tool, but right now what I'm going to actually emphasize here is the one that has to do with the particular issue that we are talking about, the particular topic we are taking care of today, which is that of low self-esteem. So there was a past you. This past you, there is a present you, and then there is a pending you. Now, this past you, we can call it your personal history. This is your story. This is everything that has been in your past. This is who you used to be or who you still are, but then this is kind of your history. Now, neurologically, majority of the time we tend to be, we are majority a product of our past. Our present, the present you right now is actually a product of your past, and the pending you is who you are evolving into. In fact, this present you is what people know about you right now. A lot of people don't actually know the past you. They don't know your personal history. They don't know your entire story. But they know you right now. They know the present you. They know who you are right now. And then there is a pending you. This is who you are evolving into. Now, for some people, this seems to be like their next 5 years, their next 2 years, their next 3 years, the next 5 years, the next 10 years, the next 20 years. This is who they see themselves, or who they see themselves becoming. And it's very important to understand that this past you influenced this present you, and this present you will actually influence the pending you. Now, what I have learned in my own work with people, is that a lot of my OBS says it has stopped working. Okay, great. So my broadcast has continued. Okay, sorry for that break in transmission. My software was notifying me that it was about to stop. So now, what I want you to understand here, that this past you consists of your personal history. This is your story. This is that part of you that, if we are to work with age, we will say the person who used to be prior to your recent birthday. So this is all that was about you. This is the past. This is your personal history. Now, the present you is what people know about you right now. Interestingly, this present you right now is made up of two parts. Now, there is a public you and there is a private you. Now, what I'm going to do here now is to explain what each of these is to you, so that you can actually understand exactly what I am referring to. Let me check if... Oh, thanks, boss. I want to say thank you to Praise for Wowe. Thanks for that. So now, what I want you to understand is that this past you is where you actually learned all of the fears you have in your life right now. Now, majority of the times, people have fears that they don't even understand where it comes from. And the reason why that is because your past you had maybe a traumatic experience, maybe some form of whatever thing that could have happened that actually became encoded into your past, then now is determining or influencing your present you. Now, this present you, this is who you are right now. This is what people know about you. Interestingly, this present you is divided into two. There is a public you and there is a private you. Now, what a lot of people project is the public you. That is what a lot of people project most of the time. There is a private you somewhere that's actually hidden. Now, let me talk about this public you a little before I move forward. Now, this public you is what others know about you. This is the mask that we actually project out to people. This is that person who is going through issues but is refusing to acknowledge it publicly because it is a private issue. And so, because you don't want people to know about that thing that you are going through, you begin to project a different image out there. You begin to show a different side of you. So, let me tell a story of a governor. I actually heard this story from Matthew Femi Adedoyin. And this story has to do with a governor whose past, when he was very small, in his past, he was actually abused by prostitutes. I mean, prostitutes actually abused him. More than one prostitute actually abused him. And so, because that was encoded in his personal history, his present you, he is a governor of a state. That is, he was a governor of a state, and his public image was that he put up a campaign that people should not patronize prostitutes. And by saying that people should not patronize prostitutes, it was actually getting a lot of people to go out of prostitution. It was trying to get a lot of people to actually stop patronizing prostitutes. But because this was in his past unattended to, this public image he was trying to project was being pulled back by this private life that he has. Now, one day it was discovered that he actually sleeps with prostitutes, even while he was telling people not to patronize prostitutes. Now, it was devastating for him because it was something a lot of people couldn't wrap their hands around, and it became a lot challenging. It actually became a scandal in that place. Now, I want you to think with me right now. What is the mask that you are actually projecting to others? And what is the private you? That part of you which is what you... Let me switch to a window right now. Okay, great. Now, this private you right now is what you don't want others to know about you. This is that part of you that you have filed away. This is that part of you that you have secretly kept somewhere. This is what Nathaniel Branden calls the disowned self. What Carl Jung and Debbie Ford calls your shadow. Now, unless you actually attend to this private you, it tends to keep pushing. It tries to get itself to be noticed sometimes. Now, let me check the comments. Okay, great. Let me pin this comment right now. Fantastic. Okay, so I hope you can still hear me. I hope you're still with me. Now, what you may need to understand is that a lot of times this public you is who becomes developed. This private you is, however, abandoned or sometimes disowned. Now, what I'm referring to here is that a lot of time when we say that we want to go for personal development, when we are trying to grow, what we actually grow is this public us. This public you is what you grow, while the private you is actually abandoned, is actually neglected. Now, the private self, this private you, is repressed, is kind of denied, and is hidden for as long as possible until one day when he becomes tired of hiding, and then he begins to raise his head. He begins to call for attention. Now, sometimes this shows up as some form of unresolved internal conflict. Sometimes it shows up as destructive behavior. Sometimes it shows up as anger. And in context of what I'm discussing here, it shows up as phobia, it shows up as fear, it shows us as anxiety, as rage, or even depression. Now, the reason why that is happening is because your public you and your private you are not in congruence with each other. And because they are not in congruence with each other, that begins to create a lot of internal conflict. That begins to create a lot of challenge with your self-esteem. Because, of course, you are trying to hide this private you because you are afraid that what if somebody discovers this part of me? You are afraid that what if I tell people this side of me? Now, as I usually say in my classes, your past needs healing from you, your future needs acceptance, and your present needs ownership from you. Now, let me jump in the comments and see what's going on. Hello, right? Thank you for joining. Joyce Swangbe, thank you for joining. Swangba rather. Chinonso Faith, thank you for joining. Prince Moses Adebanji, thanks for joining. Tonto Davis, thanks for joining. Martin Floxy, thanks for joining as well. Akamu Steven, Alex J. Max, Fisayo, Dayo Samuel, Busola Jala, Alabik Hayode, Taufik Alawade, ZOB, Shakiru Salau, thanks for joining. I appreciate your being here. And Principal versus Goson, thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Now, your past needs healing from you, your present needs acceptance, and your present needs ownership from you. That was where I stopped. And I was trying to explain this concept of life movement to you. Your past doesn't always determine your future, but your past has influenced your present up until now. And it comes to you such that you need to heal from it. And the way to heal from it is to simply connect the disconnect between this public you and the private you. A lot of times we don't want to acknowledge this private self because this public self has become what we are used to. In fact, in my book, The Government of Self, I actually talked about this, and I said that sometimes it even happens such that, now if you are enjoying this, please, I want you to actually share it with others. I want you to share it right now. Please go ahead and share this with others if you are enjoying this. Now, as I was saying, a lot of the times this public you we become used to this public you such that we now become so attached to this public self such that the private self becomes someone that we don't even recognize. Now, this private you actually determines a lot of the things, a lot of your fears, a lot of your anxieties, a lot of the phobias. Sometimes it even determines whether you get into a depressive state. Sometimes it even decides whether you exhibit some behaviors that you are not proud of, maybe anger, rage. Sometimes it even happens that some people have certain sexual behaviors that result from not wanting to take care of this private you. Now, let me take this time to just share a story of someone I worked with last year. And what happened was that this lady tended to masturbate compulsively. Now, she actually writes a lot of posts. She's a very popular person on social media, particularly on Facebook, and she writes a lot of posts. But then, she is not proud to talk about this masturbation, and every time she masturbates, she gets into this internal conflict. Now, first off, she's a Christian, and she's a leader in the church. So for her to actually have this kind of internal conflict, for the fact that she suffers guilt, for the fact that she's not even proud of our relationship with God anytime she gets into this compulsive behavior. So when we were talking, I decided to actually run her by this life movement, and I asked about her past. Now, knowing that this is her present self, this is the present you, I asked about her past. By the time she was telling me about her past, I discovered that somewhere in her past, some part of her was actually discarded. That is, she decided not to actually pay attention to that. Now, how do I mean by that? She was raped when she was growing up, and because she suffered rape, actually she was raped severally, more than once, I think about 3 times if I can remember. Now, having been raped 3 times, what happened was that the rape created, actually when she was raped, she enjoyed the sex. The first time she didn't enjoy it, the second time she didn't enjoy it, but by the third time it had become enjoyable, such that she now feels comfortable being raped. Whenever she doesn't get to be raped, she masturbates as a way to feel that same sexual need. Now, this is a past, this is a private you, this is a private self, this is a public self. Our public self is the one that she projects on social media, while our private self is this part of her. So what I did was to place them side by side, and then we try to extract the ultimate goal of the two sides. That is, what is the goal of this private self? What is the goal of this private and public self? And what we did was to integrate the two of them together, such that the two of them were able to come to a place of acceptance. The two of them were able to come to a place of embrace, where the two of them were able to actually talk to each other and find a common ground. Now, as I said, your past needs healing from you, your future needs acceptance, and your present needs ownership. Your present needs ownership basically because your public you and your private you, they need to own up, they need to come to a place of agreement. And if you can own that, then it makes it easy for you to accept what's coming in the future. Now, when you don't accept the future and you don't own the present, it tends to affect your self-esteem in that it creates some sense of fear in you, such that you begin to become afraid of what may happen. You begin to become afraid. You begin to have panic attacks. You begin to have anxiety. You begin to have heartbeat palpitations, such that you begin to feel what may happen suddenly. Now, this is important to understand, and that's why I'm bringing you this awareness right now. Now, this morning, while I was actually meditating, I wrote something in my notes that I would actually like to share with you. I wrote something in my journal that I would like to share with you, and I call these symptoms of inner conflict. Now, first off, and anyone that has this inner conflict, especially influencing your self-esteem, you get to experience 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, any of these 6 symptoms. Number 1, low motivation. You may set a goal, but you may not have the energy to go after the goal that you have set. Number 2, resistance to grow. You will want to develop the public you, but your private you has this form of resistance internally, such that the private you needs you to come to a place where you say, okay, finally, I'm accepting that this has happened. I'm accepting that this is who I am. So, symptoms of inner conflict number 3, forced goals. Sometimes when you have a coach or a counselor, a professional that you're working with, maybe a therapist, you tend to feel like you are being forced to do certain things. Now, this is a symptom of inner conflict. Number 4 is confused or diffused energy. You tend to come up with a lot of things a lot of times, such that you feel like you have so much to do and you don't have all of the time to actually do them. Number 5 is negative support system. Now, because you have this inner conflict, people, places, or things may tend to create a negative influence around you. And it is basically because you are having internal conflict with yourself. Now, number 5 or number 6, which is actually the one that influences or affects people the most, is because you have this inner conflict. Your beliefs about money, your beliefs about success, your beliefs about happiness begin to feel tampered with. And what I mean by that, So let me use beliefs about money for example. You begin to feel like there's this deep buried poverty consciousness. Sometimes you may even feel like you don't feel good to actually earn money. I've actually seen a post here on, I've seen a post, that should be December. I saw a post where someone was actually talking about people charging for programs and products that they offer. And what that person was actually voicing, without necessarily voicing it, is our own deep-seated idea, a belief about money. And oftentimes this is actually created by this inner conflict. We begin to have beliefs about money that may not actually be empowering to us. So you may hear somebody say that it's not actually good to charge money, it's not good to actually do this and do that. It's often coming from a place of unresolved inner conflict. Now, I shared all of this with you so that you can come to a place where you need to deal with the fear, whether conscious or unconscious. And as I said here, to overcome low self-esteem, we need to deal with the fear, whether it's conscious fear, the one that you are aware of, or the unconscious fear, the one that you are not aware of, but is determining and influencing your life. So that's important to know. And as I have started saying, awareness is power. When fear is outside of our awareness, it grows stronger and influences areas of our lives and personality. And sometimes in extreme crises, it actually takes us over entirely. Now, if you want me to read that to you again, I say awareness is actually power. When fear is outside your awareness, when you are not aware of how fear is actually controlling you, how fear is influencing you, particularly your self-esteem, that fear becomes empowered and it grows stronger and influences area of your life and personality. And in some cases, it actually takes you over entirely. Now, I shared all of this with you so that you can come to a place of awareness. And if you will need more personal help, I'll be glad to provide that to you. You can actually chat me up right here on Facebook, or you may want to apply for the Fear Resolve process, which is actually a workshop I am putting up together in March, into this March next month, so that others like yourself can actually join me and we can work together. Like I said, my name again is Dayo Samuel, and my goal for doing this series is to help you overcome fear so that you can go do the things that matter to you personally and professionally. Fear should not be a reason why you don't get to achieve all your life's goals, dreams, and desires, all your wants, all your needs, all your desires. One day, I'm actually going to talk about how fear actually influences our relationship with God. I'm also going to talk about how we acquire all of our fears. I'm going to talk about how fear works in your brain. I'm going to talk about the types of fear that exist. I'm also going to try to create a distinction between fear, phobia, and anxiety. Particularly, I'm going to dive into that in subsequent live classes like this. So till next Tuesday, when I'm going to come again live like this, till then, I want you to be aware that the limitation in your life, the limitation in your mind, is the limitation in your life. If you can break the frame from your mind, you will break the frame over your life. You break the frame in your life. So break the frame from your mind. The frame will then be broken in your life. So in whatever area of your life that you felt constrained, confined, that you can't go further, that you have actually plateaued, I want you to ask yourself right now, is it fear that's actually stopping you? Is it fear that is not letting you go further? Is it fear that's not letting you go further? If so, I would like to help. More importantly, I want you to actually go over this live broadcast and work and answer some of the questions that I asked, particularly some of the questions that have to do with the private you and the public you. And just to chime in on something I had said before, sometimes depending you is a role we want to play in the world, but more importantly, it is who we want to become majority of the times we focus on the role we want to play, a role we want to play, and then we forget the identity that is going to power the role. So I want to thank you for joining me on this live stream. Thank you, Akamut Steven. Thank you, Stella Iwa Joku. Thank you, Malik Haruna King. Thank you, Ejembi Ohi. Thank you for joining this live stream. Like I said, if you would like me to work with you more personally, I'll be glad to do that. But then I'm inviting you to the Fear Resolve workshop, the Fear Resolve process, which is a live workshop that I'm holding in March 2018, right here in the heart of Lagos, Nigeria. And together, we'll be able to work some of the physical things that we need to do together. Till next Tuesday, when I'm going to come your way again, I want to say, take the limits of your mind, because the limitation in your mind is the limitation in your life. Till then, have yourself a wonderful day.